The discovery. The Galactic Council chamber fell silent when Ambassador Thexvor dropped the data crystal onto the polished table. The small object clattered across the surface, its blue glow casting eerie shadows on the faces of representatives from 47 different species. "Impossible," whispered Chancellor Vretak, her 6 eyes widening in horror. "The humans destroyed all copies. We watched them do it." "Apparently," Thexvor said, his mandibles clicking with barely contained rage, "they lied. The crystal contained something that should not exist, a complete archive of Earth's military history. Every war. Every weapon. Every tactical innovation from the first sharpened stick to the quantum disruptors that nearly destroyed half the galaxy. Knowledge that humanity had sworn to erase when they joined the Galactic Council 200 years ago. Deep in the underground levels of Earth's capital city, Dr. Sarah Chen didn't know her life's work had just been exposed. She walked through rows of shelves that stretched into darkness, her footsteps echoing in the vast chamber. The Archive of Forbidden Knowledge, as she privately called it, contained more than just military history. It held every dangerous idea humanity had ever conceived. The Keeper's Burden. Sarah had inherited this secret from her grandmother, who had inherited it from hers, in an unbroken chain stretching back to the day humanity surrendered its weapons. The Council had demanded that humans erase their warlike past completely. Delete every record. Burn every book. Forget the very concept of organized violence. Most of humanity had complied eagerly. They wanted peace. They wanted to join the galaxy's civilized species. They wanted to prove they could evolve beyond their violent nature. But a small group of historians had disagreed. Not because they loved war, but because they understood a fundamental truth: those who forget history are doomed to repeat it. Sarah ran her fingers along the spines of ancient books. Military Strategy by Sun Tzu. Clausewitz's Theories on War. Detailed schematics of 20th century weapons. Digital archives of every conflict Earth had ever fought. The Council called this knowledge poison. Sarah called it wisdom purchased with blood. She paused at a terminal and pulled up her current project, a comparative study of human and alien approaches to conflict resolution. The differences were striking. When faced with pirates, the Vraxian Empire negotiated and paid tribute. When threatened by aggressive neighbors, the Kelton Dominion retreated and sought mediation. The galaxy had chosen peace through submission. Humanity had once chosen differently. The accusation. Sarah's communicator buzzed. It was her assistant, Marcus, and his voice was panicked. "Dr. Chen, you need to leave. Now. Council security forces are heading to your location." Her blood ran cold. "How did they find out?" "I don't know, but they're coming with a termination order. Not just for the archive. For you." Sarah looked around at 2 centuries of carefully preserved knowledge. She had always known this day might come. The Council tolerated human eccentricities, but there were lines that could not be crossed. Keeping weapons knowledge was one of them. She ran to her office and grabbed a small data drive, downloading as much as she could in the few minutes she had. Military history. Tactical manuals. Strategic frameworks. The archive was too large to save completely, but she could preserve the essentials. Alarms began blaring throughout the facility. Red emergency lights bathed everything in a hellish glow. Sarah heard the distinctive hum of Council security drones entering the building. They would be here in minutes. She made a decision that would change everything. Instead of running, Sarah walked calmly to the main terminal and initiated a protocol she had hoped never to use. With a few keystrokes, she uploaded the entire archive to Earth's public network. Every book. Every document. Every dangerous idea that humanity had promised to forget. Within seconds, every human with a network connection would have access to knowledge the Council had banned. The arrest. The security drones found Sarah sitting calmly at her desk, sipping tea as if she had all the time in the world. Ambassador Thexvor entered behind them, his expression one of cold fury. Dr. Chen, he said, you are under arrest for crimes against galactic peace. The penalty is memory erasure and permanent exile. I understand, Sarah replied quietly. She had known the consequences when she pressed that button. Do you? Thexfor stepped closer, his voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. Do you understand what you've done? Your species swore an oath. You promised to leave your violent past behind. And now you've given them back the very knowledge that made them the most dangerous species in galactic history. Sarah met his eyes without flinching. I gave them back their history. There's a difference. History? Thexfor laughed bitterly. Is that what you call instructions for building weapons of mass destruction? Strategies for planetary invasion? Tactics for genocide? I call it context, Sarah said firmly. Do you know why humans were so good at war, Ambassador? Not because we were naturally violent. Every species is violent when threatened. We were good at war because we studied it. We understood it. We learned from our mistakes. And that made you monsters. No, Sarah stood up, her voice growing stronger. That made us survivors. And now that knowledge is out there again, every human can access it. And you can't stop it. The Council's dilemma. The emergency session of the Galactic Council lasted 16 hours. Representatives argued, threatened, and pleaded. Some demanded immediate military action against Earth. Others urged caution, reminding everyone that humans, while currently peaceful, had once been the most formidable warriors in the known galaxy. Chancellor Vritak finally called for order. The question before us is simple, she announced. What do we do about humanity now that they have reclaimed their forbidden knowledge? Quarantine them, suggested the Kelton ambassador. Cut them off from the rest of the galaxy until they agree to erase this information again. Invade them, growled the Vraxian general. Before they can use this knowledge to rebuild their military. Or, said a quiet voice from the back of the chamber, we could ask them why. All eyes turned to Ambassador Chenli, Sarah's distant cousin and Earth's representative to the council. She walked slowly to the center of the chamber, her age-worn face calm but sad. You all know the official history, she said. Humanity joined the council, we gave up war, we became civilized. But you don't know the whole truth. She activated a holographic display that showed a star map. 3 sectors away from here, beyond council space, something is stirring. Our long-range sensors have detected movement. Ships. Thousands of them. An armada of a type we haven't seen in recorded galactic history. The chamber erupted in confused murmurs. We've kept this information classified, Ambassador Chen continued, because we didn't want to cause panic. But my cousin Sarah Chen knew. She's been tracking these signals for 5 years. And she came to a conclusion that terrified her. What conclusion? Chancellor Vritak demanded. That war is coming. Real war. Not the small skirmishes and pirate raids the galaxy has dealt with for the last 1,000 years. Something bigger. Something that will require more than negotiation and retreat to survive. Ambassador Chen looked around at the assembled species, all of whom had forgotten how to fight. Sarah released that archive because she believed humanity might be the galaxy's only hope of survival. Not because we're better than you. But because we're the only ones who remember how to defend ourselves. The chamber fell into stunned silence. In her cell, Sarah Chen smiled grimly. The council thought they were punishing her. They didn't realize she had just given humanity back its greatest gift, the ability to protect itself and everyone else. Now she just had to hope she was right about the coming threat. Because if she was wrong, she had just reignited humanity's most dangerous instincts for nothing. But if she was right, she had just given the galaxy a fighting chance. When shadows strike, the threat emerges. 3 weeks after Sarah Chen's arrest, the galaxy learned she had been absolutely right. The attack came without warning. A fleet of massive ships, each one larger than a space station, emerged from the dark space beyond Council territory. They didn't respond to hails. They didn't issue demands. They simply began destroying everything in their path. The first system to fall was a peaceful Kelton colony. 3 billion beings dead in 6 hours. The Council fleet that responded lasted 47 minutes before being completely annihilated. In the Council chambers, panic replaced the usual calm deliberation. Representatives screamed at each other. Some demanded immediate evacuation of their home worlds. Others insisted on continued diplomatic attempts. A few quietly calculated whether surrender might be preferable to extinction. Chancellor Vritak watched the chaos with growing despair. In 1,000 years of leading the Council, she had never felt so helpless. The galaxy's combined military forces were designed for peacekeeping, not warfare. They had the finest negotiators, the best mediators, the most advanced communication technology. They had no idea how to fight. The proposal. Madam Chancellor, Ambassador Chenli said quietly, appearing at her side. There is another option. If you're about to suggest releasing your cousin and giving humans military authority, I should warn you that half this council would rather die than accept that. I'm suggesting exactly that, the ambassador replied calmly. And I'm suggesting they're about to get their wish. Vritak turned to face her. You realize what you're asking? For the last 2 centuries, the entire foundation of galactic peace has been based on humanity's promise to remain peaceful. If we ask them to become warriors again, we're admitting our entire civilization was built on a lie. Better a living lie than a dead truth, Ambassador Chen said bluntly. Those ships out there don't care about our ideals. They're going to destroy us whether we're peaceful or not. The only question is whether we go down fighting or cowering. Before the Chancellor could respond, an aide rushed into the chamber. Madam Chancellor. The attack fleet has entered the Proxima sector. Current trajectory suggests they're heading directly for Earth. A cold silence fell over the room. Everyone understood what that meant. If Earth fell, humanity's newly recovered military knowledge would die with them. The galaxy's last hope would be gone. The desperate gambit. Chancellor Vritak made a decision that would echo through history. She stood before the council and spoke words that would have been unthinkable just weeks before. Release Dr. Sarah Chen. Give her full authority over council military resources. And may the universe forgive us for what we're about to unleash. The vote was close. Many representatives abstained. But in the end, survival instinct won over ideology. Sarah Chen walked out of her cell 18 hours before the enemy fleet would reach Earth. She went immediately to the archive, which Council forces had been in the process of destroying. Much of it was already gone, but enough remained. You have 6 billion Council troops, Chancellor Vritak told her in a hastily arranged meeting. Advanced ships. Powerful weapons. But none of them know how to use these things for warfare. Can you teach them in time? Sarah looked at the data showing the approaching threat. The enemy fleet was massive. Technologically superior. Their tactics were flawless. In any normal engagement, they would win. But Sarah Chen hadn't spent her life studying human military history to fight normal engagements. I don't need to teach 6 billion soldiers, she said quietly. I need to teach 6 billion humans to remember what we're capable of. The awakening. The message went out across Earth simultaneously. It appeared on every screen, every device, every network connection. Sarah's face filled billions of displays as she spoke words that reverberated through humanity's collective consciousness. My fellow humans, she began, for 2 centuries, we've been at peace. We gave up war. We gave up weapons. We became civilized. We should be proud of that. But now something is coming that threatens not just us, but every species in the galaxy. And I need you to remember something we've been trying to forget. She paused, and her voice grew stronger. We are descendants of beings who survived ice ages and plagues. Who crossed oceans in wooden ships. Who reached for the stars even when everyone said it was impossible. We come from a long line of survivors. And survival sometimes requires violence. The broadcast showed footage from the archive. Human history in all its terrible glory. Not glorifying war, but showing its reality. The cost. The sacrifice. The hard choices made by people who refuse to surrender. The council thinks we're dangerous because we know how to fight, Sarah continued. But we're not dangerous because we know how to fight. We're dangerous because we know how to win. There's a difference. Fighting is easy. Winning requires strategy, tactics, innovation, sacrifice. And above all, it requires us to remember who we are. She leaned closer to the camera, her eyes intense. The enemy is coming. They expect us to run or surrender like every other species they've encountered. They don't know that humans never learned those skills. We only know how to fight. So that's what we're going to do. The battle for Earth. The enemy fleet arrived expecting easy prey. What they found was something they had never encountered before. Earth's defense wasn't based on advanced technology or superior numbers. It was based on asymmetric warfare, guerrilla tactics, and creative thinking. Concepts the galaxy had forgotten but humanity had mastered over thousands of years of conflict. Sarah coordinated from Earth's Defense Center, surrounded by hastily trained military advisors who were learning tactics that felt both foreign and strangely familiar. She divided the defense into 3 layers, each designed to confuse and fragment the enemy fleet. The first layer was misdirection. Thousands of automated drones broadcasting false signals, making the enemy think Earth's defenses were concentrated in the wrong places. The enemy adapted quickly, but it bought precious time. The second layer was harassment. Small, fast ships performing hit-and-run attacks. Not trying to destroy the enemy, just to slow them down and force them to waste resources on defense. Classic guerrilla tactics that frustrated the enemy's organized military mind. The third layer was the trap. Sarah had studied the enemy's attack patterns. They were efficient, logical, and predictable. They always chose the path of least resistance. Always divided their forces to maximize coverage. Always followed optimal military doctrine. So Sarah gave them exactly what their doctrine said they should do. She left a seemingly undefended approach vector to Earth. The kind of mistake that looked like inexperience but was actually bait. The enemy fleet took it. They concentrated their forces for a decisive strike, moving into position for a devastating orbital bombardment. And that's when Earth's moon opened fire. Humanity had spent 3 frantic weeks converting their lunar facilities into the largest weapons platform in the solar system. It wasn't elegant. It wasn't advanced. It was just thousands of kinetic weapons launchers firing simultaneously at a tightly packed enemy fleet that had positioned itself perfectly for maximum damage. The battle lasted 3 hours. When it ended, the enemy fleet was shattered. Not destroyed completely, but broken enough that the survivors retreated into dark space. The aftermath. In the council chambers, representatives watched the battle recordings in stunned silence. They had seen humanity fight. It wasn't clean or civilized. It was brutal, cunning, and terrifyingly effective. They tricked the enemy into a kill zone, whispered the Kelton ambassador. Sacrificed resources they couldn't afford to lose just to manipulate enemy positioning. What kind of species thinks like that? The kind that survives, Chancellor Vretak said quietly. Sarah Chen stood before the council 1 week after the battle. She looked exhausted but unbowed. You asked us to fight, she said simply. We fought. Now the question is what happens next. Do you want us to forget again? To put the weapons away and pretend war doesn't exist? Because I can tell you right now, that enemy fleet will be back. Stronger. Smarter. And next time, we might not be so lucky. What do you propose? The Chancellor asked. I propose we stop lying to ourselves, Sarah said. Peace isn't the absence of violence. It's the choice not to use violence when you have the capability. The galaxy thought it had achieved peace by forgetting how to fight. All you really achieved was helplessness. She activated a display showing Earth's defense networks. Let humanity remember what we are. Let us keep the archive. Let us maintain our military knowledge. Not because we want to conquer anyone, but because someone needs to remember how to defend the innocent. Let us be the galaxy's shield. And if humanity decides to become a sword instead, demanded the Vraxian general. Sarah smiled sadly. Then you'll have the same problem every generation of humans has faced, trusting that the next generation will make better choices than the last. That's what civilization is. Not forgetting our capacity for violence, but choosing every single day not to use it unless we must. The vote took 3 days. In the end, humanity was granted permission to maintain its military knowledge and defensive capabilities. But with restrictions. Oversight. Regular reviews. The galaxy was willing to let humans be guardians, but they would be watched carefully. Sarah returned to the archive, which was being rebuilt with council funding. As she walked through the partially restored shelves, she thought about her grandmother's words, "Knowledge isn't good or evil. It's just knowledge. What matters is what we choose to do with it." The enemy would return. Sarah was certain of that. But next time, the galaxy would be ready. Not because they had learned to love war, but because they had learned that sometimes the only way to preserve peace is to remember the cost of losing it. And humanity, the species that had tried so hard to forget its violent past, had become the guardians of that memory. Not because they were better than anyone else, but because they were the only ones who understood that the path to lasting peace doesn't run through forgetting how to fight. It runs through remembering why we choose not to.